Hello and welcome to Beginners Python and Machine Learning. My name's Tim Cummings. Today I'm streaming from Brisbane Business Hub, and we have a few people here who are decided to turn up for the in-person, and we'll hope to make this a more regular feature, because I know a lot of people have asked for in-person sessions at this Meetup group. So for everyone else, you can follow along at home in the streaming, and remember to ask questions as we go. So you can ask questions on Slack, and I'll be on the Learning to Code channel there. And you can also ask questions in the YouTube chat, and hopefully I'll notice if someone asks a question there. But I've got people here who can be watching that as well, so they can tell me if any questions come through. All right, so what we're doing is we're writing a web application in Python. You don't, it's not everyone is going to want to write web applications, but it is actually a reasonably good user interface for your programs that you write. If you have user interaction, if you convert it into a web application, it gives you some really nice forms and makes it cross-platform and networkability. So it's a really good thing to do to your applications. We're going to be using the Flask framework. We've already done a couple of sessions on this, but if you haven't done them, that's okay. You'll be able to jump straight in where we are. So here's the Meetup page. And I've put some links on the Meetup page. So here we go, instructions for this session at this link here, which is part 3. But there's also part 2 and part 1. So if you need to set up your computer, go back to those and see how to do it. So in fact, I will just show you how if you need to set up. So I'll go to part 1, and in part 1 we've got a link here to the source code that's in GitHub. We've got the GitHub is a source code repository, which means it's a place you can save all your source code, and by putting it up there means you don't have to type it in all the time. And Git's a very good way of collaborating on source code, because it means that you can branch off and do your own thing and then merge it back into the source that other people are working on. And there's lots of checks and things that can be done on the way to make a successful team building project. So I'm going to open up the GitHub repository where the source code is stored, and that's here in my group of repositories. And you'll see you can get this link, which is very much the same link as where we've just come to get here. It's got .git on the end. We'll copy that, and now you can clone that onto your computer. Now from Pycharm, if you've just started up Pycharm, I might just close this project so you'll see what it looks like. So Pycharm will look like this, and you can say get from VCS, which is the version control system, and you can type that URL into here, which I've just copied, paste that in there, and it'll ask you for a directory to put things in, and it'll set up the virtual environment for you. Now I've already done this, and so this is my project that I've got here. It's called bpaml, for Beginners Python and Machine Learning, Prime Minister. So it's a project that lists all the Prime Ministers of Australia. When you first check it out, you'll be in the main branch, and you'll see down here I'm in the Git tab, and it tells me all the different branches. It might just have main down there, but it'll also tell you what other branches are on the remote server. And the remote servers, they're called Origin, that's the default name for the first one, and then you can have other servers there if you want as well. But and these are all the different branches. Last week we got up to task 5. So if you see task 5 there, you can check that one out. We're halfway through task 5. So here we are. I've got task 5. It's currently the one that's checked out for me. And the changes that I made last week, I've popped into a stash. So I'm just going to unstash those changes so that we're back to where I was last week. And do that by saying pop stash. There's my stash, task 5 attempt. Pop that in, and you can see that these are the changes that I've been making. In init.py, I've added these 2 lines here from dot into the auth and register the blueprint. So blueprints are a way of compartmentalizing your code, putting it in smaller files, so that everything that's related to one particular function can be just in one file, and makes it a lot easier to find stuff. So everything to do with authentication, we put it into a file called auth.py. This is where we've registered it in our main file in init.py. And so if we look in auth.py, you can see everything that's in there. So we'll go back to having a look at the README that tells us what task 5 was. Add authentication to application so users can log in. Now, we've got a database. The table already exists in the database. And the Flask website has actually got a tutorial on how to add authentication. So we're really going to do that, but we're just going to make some changes so that we'll test how much you're understanding what you're reading. I've changed the table name in my SQL database. My table name is called table user, and theirs was just called user. I've got 3 fields in the user, so these are the users people are going to register and log in. ID, VC username, and VC password. And the reason I use VC is just to remind me that they're a varchar. It's a variable character length string. Varchar username, varchar password. While they just use the names, username, and password. So anytime you're looking at the SQL in their web page, you have to change to use these field names, table names. Alright, so let's open up this tutorial and we'll see where we got to. So we're creating this file auth.py. We imported the libraries we needed and we created a blueprint. And then just a blueprint. It's like a small app. Remember in the init file we created an app. In the blueprint we created a blueprint. And it's just like an app, but it only does one part of it. And then we registered it, like I showed you. And now, just like we did app.root to create a URL root in the app, we can do a bp.root to create a URL in the BP, and it will in the blueprint, and it will be a sub URL. So /register will come after /auth, which is what will show in the main URL, and we've called it auth the URL prefix. All the URLs in this blueprint will have the prefix /auth, so that will also group them together. So I copied all this file here. Here's a bit of SQL that I had to change. Once again, so username became VC username, password became VC password, and user became table user. That's where they register. And then for login, we had some more SQL here. Table user, VC username, and then when we were calling up user, we had to change the field name to VC password. Logout is the same, and this require authentication in other views is the same. Okay, so that's where we got to last month. So let's continue on to templates. Remember to ask any questions if I'm going too fast for you or you need some more explanation. Okay, so Flask app has got Python code and it's also got some templates. And the templates make it a lot easier to generate the HTML that make up web pages. And we can even inherit templates. So for example, we can set up a base layout of all the HTML that's going to be on every page, and then we can just inherit that HTML by referring to it in our others. Now, in the tutorial, they've called it base layout, just to make life difficult for you. In my project, I've created a base layout and I've called it layout.html. And so you see in my layout.html, I've even extended a base that comes with the Bootstrap library, and that just helps because it's got some nice layouts, nice styling in there. And then we've got these blocks. So you can see in one of these files, you can set up a block with a name, and we can either leave it empty, waiting for one of the sub layouts to populate it, or we can populate it here, and then that will populate it for any of the super layouts. So in this case, the base HTML defines block title. We're saying in block title we want it to be called My Python App and the page title. And this is the spot of what we're going to create, is page content, is what we specify in our layouts. Okay, so that's how it's set up. Let's create the layouts that they describe in the tutorial. So we're going to put it into a folder, we're not doing base, we're doing this one, a folder called auth, that's in, and it's called register.html in templates. And remember, flask R is what they call the application, Prime Minister is what we've called ours. So we'll create auth subdirectory in templates, and in there we'll create two HTML files. One's for register, and we'll add that into Git. And the other one is login. Now, when I'm using Pycharm, Pycharm's put in a HTML file without any reference to Flask. So let's change that to a Ginger template. And we'll use the code that they've got on the tutorial, so we can just copy and paste. So this one's register.html. I'll get rid of all this HTML that's here. And put in the code that they've got. Now you see they've said extend base. We haven't got a base, we've got a layout. So let's extend layout. And block content, they're filling out the content in this sub layout. We're going to fill out page content. So it's a different name, so we have to change the name of that back there. But everything else should be the same. Let's move on to login. Once again, we'll change the block to page. super layout to layout.html. All right, now we're ready to run our application, see how it goes with this new code. I can actually put in any links in the layout. Yes, we need to put them in first as well. So I'll go back to our tutorial. And there was some stuff in the base layout that we needed, which is this bit of navigation. So that's going to be a URL to log out, a URL to register, and a URL to log in. And it's using these URL fors to call the functions that we've just created in our Python files. And it will then work out what the URL should be to match those functions. So if gd.user, that means that we've already logged in, we get a logout link. If they're not logged in, we get register or login. Right, now we're ready to run, but you may not have any data in your database if you're just starting tonight. So to put data into the database, we need to run this script that's in db.py, and you can see we've created click tells us we can create a command line instruction here. Maybe I'll just put CK on the end to make it a common word, but that's what that annotation lets us do. So if we type initdb, then it will initialize the database for us. So I've gone to the terminal here. You can see I've got my virtual environment is activated because that's in parentheses at the beginning. And I can type flask initdb, and it'll run this function here, which is to initialize the database. And it says initialize the database. So now I've got all the prime ministers in there, but there's no users in there at all. So now we want to run the application. And it's running in debug mode, and it gives us a link here. I can click on that link, and here is our application. Now I can see if I go to the login page, I've got a username and password, but there's no one registered yet, so let's go to the register page and register myself. And now I can go to the login page. And you can see now I'm logged in and I have a logout link. So it's pretty similar. I think Cisco did something similar last week. So if you follow his, then you should be pretty familiar with all of that code. All right, so we've done our bit here. If you want to see the actual solution, you can check out task 6. So what I suggest here is you create a new branch called task 5 attempt to save all the changes that you've made. So let's do that. I've got the code here to do it from the command line, but if I want to do it in the graphical user interface, I can create a new branch from task 5. We'll call it task 5 attempt. And then I want to commit all my changes. So up here on the left, you can see a commit tab. These are all the files that have changed since the task 5 branch. So none of those changes have been committed. So I want to commit all those changes. You'll see the green files are the new files, and the blue files are the old files that I've modified. So we can put in some sort of message about what we've just done. And there we go. That's my name. And now if we look in the history here, we can see that we've added this extra commit in the commit log. We can see which files have changed. We can look at who made the change. That was me. And we can look at any of those changes to see what they were. But the main reason to put them into task 5 attempt was just to keep them out of the way. So now we can go and check out task 6. And this will be all the previously done changes. So you can compare task 5 to task 6 if you want. Compare with task 6, and it'll show you all the differences between those that have happened. And the same sort of things. All right, so let's try running that. If I look in terminal, one of the advantages of being in debug mode is it reloads whenever there's a change to the code, so I don't even need to start it again, and I can go back to where I was and keep using my web application. So it's slightly different. I put the log out in front of rather than at the end, all these other items. The other items are still working. You see the list of prime ministers and deputy prime ministers that we worked out from last time. Any questions? No.
It's too fast for me.
It's too fast, sorry. Yeah, it's the problem with doing these online things is if I don't go fast enough, it'll get boring for other people. But it's hard to keep up. So what I recommend when you're watching the videos is just keep pausing it at the spots and work through the exercise and then follow what the solution is, so that you can actually understand what I'm saying, because you've got the context, you've tried to work it out yourself, and now can see what the answer is. Okay. So we'll go to task 6. Challenge 6. Keep the search form populated after clicking the search button. Okay, so let's have a look at what our app is currently doing when we search in people. So if we want to find someone called Tony, we do search. So it finds Tony Abbott, but it clears the search form. So if I wanted to search again, so we'll search for Anthony. And it's found Tony Abbott, Anthony Albanese, and Mark Bale. But it's lost the search term, so I can't see there what was searched on. So this is a little bit more challenging. I haven't really given you a lot of background on how to do this. But let's see if we can work something out. Click on the structure tab here, so I can go straight to view persons. This is our this is where we do the search. And we've got two ways of coming in. We've got get, which is when we first load the page, and we've got post, which is when someone clicks on the submit button. So as we go go through here, we can check if the request method was a get or a post, and so we know whether they've clicked on search or they've just come in without just by clicking the URL to take us to a person's page. And if they come in straight through the URL, we don't want to show any of the people yet in the search results. We just want to show you the search form. Now the search form populates the data into request.form. So we can actually save that whole form. And let's save it into a variable called FRM. So it'll be like a dictionary. We save that form into FRM if they come in through the post, but if they come in through the get, we just want the form to be empty. And now we've got our variable, which will be like a dictionary. We can send that off to the list person template. And all we do is we just create a new named argument for this function. So we use the same name as our variable name. We just say form equals form. And then in listperson.html, we can refer to the dictionary values of FRM. So we want to do that in listperson.html. And we're going to do it in these input fields. So input the HTML for those fields where you type in the values, and with input, this is the HTML lesson, you can set what what the initial value is going to be. So form.given name. We'll do the same for the surname. Okay, let's see how that works. So we'll do a search on Anthony, do a search, and now you see Anthony stays there. If we want Anthony Albanese, we can do the search and the values stay there because they're pre-populated. Now if we come to this page by clicking on the original URL up in people, you can see the page is empty because we've cleared that form. Okay, so that was easy as it turned out. But you just have to know what structure that data is coming through from request.form. Now I'm on a Mac here, and on Mac I can type in these commands here just by clicking on the play button in my README.md. So let's give that a go. And this will create a new branch called task 6 attempt, commit all my changes into my attempt, and then show me what differences are between task 6 and task 6 solution. Let's click on that. I didn't like the sign at the end. No, I thought I could do that. But anyway, let's do it without the hash. see what the changes are. Copy and paste. And now it's coming in, it's paging the results, because we've got this column here. So I can press down arrow and it'll go up one line at a time. I can go back arrow, up arrow to go back the line. Or I can press space to go page at a time. And that'll show you all the differences between the two branches. And when I get to the end, I can press Q to quit out of that. All right, I think that's all the Python we're going to do tonight. So if you have any questions about Python, what we'll now do is show you how to package this application up so that you can install it somewhere else. And the Flask page has also got a tutorial on that. They've got a method using setup tools and setup.py. It's not actually the latest way of doing these things, but it is such a common way that it's probably good to know this way as well. All right, so I'll open up this tutorial, how to make the project installable. So we have to describe the project, and so we create a setup.py file to do that. So let's see if I can put these on the same screen. So we can see here we've got our application is stored in a package called Prime-Minister. So a package is a folder that's got an init.py file in it, and then other files as well. And Pycharm is telling me it's a package by putting this little dot there. These other things are just normal folders. I'll just delete these because we don't have them. As I was playing with late before. This instance folder, that's one that's got created when we're running our application, and that's where actually our database is stored. Instance has been ignored from our Git repository. We don't want to put that up in the database into the Git repository. So in our Git ignore file, we've said we don't want all of these things, and one of them is all things that we don't want to include. There's instance folder, we don't want to include that in our Git repository. It's just a local folder. And if someone else downloads the Git repository, they'll create their own instance folder. Similarly, bpaml-md is our virtual environment. We don't want that to be in our Git repository, so we put that in Git ignore, and all our Git commands will make sure we don't accidentally put these folders into Git. And that's why Pycharm is just colored slightly differently, that sort of mustard color. All right, setup.py. So we want to create a setup.py. It's not going to be in the package. It's just going to be one of our project files right on the outside. So we're creating a Python file called setup, and in there we'll use most of this. So from setup tools, import file packages and setup. So it's actually a little Python program. The name of our program is going to be called Prime-Minister. It's going to have called it version 1.0.0. Packages, it's going to use find packages. So that's going to find Prime-Minister for us. And install requires is going to put in pretty much what's in our requirements file. In our requirements file, we've got a couple of others, so let's add them in as well. You see, this is a list of strings, so let's format it as such. Now, when we're creating these in our installer, the Flask application has more than just Python files. It's also got SQL files. It's got all our templates, static data like style sheets. So we create a file called manifest.in that will tell it to include those things as well. So this is a file, manifest.in. Okay, so now they're saying install the project. We can install it in our virtual environment that we're currently in by using this command here, pip install, and the -e says keep it editable so that we can make changes just as we have been, and it will still keep running. I'm going to quit the up here, Control C, and this will install our current. First of all, I will do a pip list just to show that it's not there. So there's no Prime Minister in this list. These are all the things that the libraries that are installed in our virtual environment. And then pip install.e. And I've installed it, and if I do a pip list, we can see Prime Minister application is installed. It gives us a version number and a bit of a folder of where it is. Okay. Now the other thing we can do once we've set up this setup.py file is create a real file, which is a way of packaging up your program so that you can give it to other people. So the command for that, so we're in our virtual environment, Python, and we want to, we need wheel installed first if we want to do this. And I already have it installed, but if you don't have it, you have to do pip install wheel. So I've already got it, so that's good. And now I can run the setup.py file, and I can say I want to create a binary distribution wheel package. And so that very quickly has created this folder dist, and it's got our application in there, Prime Minister -1.0.0, Py3-none-any wheel. So the any means it can run on anything, Windows, Mac, Linux. The none means it's not restricted to any particular ABI, which I don't really know what that means, but as long as it says none, that's a good thing. The PY3, it means it's for Python 3 rather than Python 2, with the name of our application. So now we've got this dist, we can install it somewhere else. We can take it to another computer and install it there. So for example, I'm going to install it in a different virtual environment. So I'll open up a command prompt. I'm going to a directory, because it's Python machine learning, and I'm going to create a new virtual environment. So on Mac and Linux, you have to type Python 3, and on Windows, it's just Python or PY. -m says I'm going to run the module bpaml that creates virtual environments, and I'll call it Prime Minister 161. Okay, so now I've created it, and it's not yet active. I've got some instructions at the beginning of the README which tell you how to do this if you're using Anaconda or Windows. So this is how to create a virtual environment in Windows. So py-m bmd and then the name, could be bmd or it could be anything you want. And then you have to activate it using scripts activate. So that bmd there is the same as that bmd there. So if you call that Prime Minister, then this one will be Prime Minister, /scripts, /activate. And you don't have to do this next bit, installing the requirements yet, but we're just going to install the one wheel file that we created before. If you're on Mac or Linux, they're the commands, and so I need to do source and activate. If you're on Anaconda, then you have to use Anaconda, create, name, give it a unique name, because Anaconda stores all the virtual environments in the same place. So each project needs to have a different name there, and then activate it. All right, so once it's activated, now I need to activate it, so I'm going to activate it here using the Mac command, which was bin activate. Once it's activated, you can see that the name of the virtual environment is at the beginning of the command line. And so now everything I do will be for this particular virtual environment. If I do a pip list, it should have hardly everything in it. It's giving me a warning saying that there's a later version of pip. So I can run this command. I'll actually do a shortened version of that command. Right, it's the latest version of pip in there. All right, now I want to install the wheel that we created before. So once again, I can just use pip, and I have to find that file. So I'm on a Mac, so I'm using / for directories. And the file was in the dist. And it was called Prime Minister -1.0.0 -py3. none-ne.wheel. So when I install this, it actually looks in the wheel and says, oh, well, to use this program, you need these other third-party libraries. So it actually goes and installs them as well. So Python.m, Flask, Bootstrap, Flask, Workflow, Click, Ginger, It's Dangerous, Dominate, Visitor, Markup Safe, and then it finally gets through to installing Prime Minister, which is our application. So once it's installed, we can run it. And so there's two ways of running this. I can just say Flask and say what app name it is that I want to run. Run. And I think I've got that underscore in there. And then that's working. I can go to this URL. And internal server error. And is caused from load logged in user and get the DB executing. So because we haven't got a database yet, so we need to initialize the database. And remember that we can do that using initdb. I've got to use the app option. Two dashes. And underscore. All right, so it's saying I haven't got a schema.xml, SQL, so that somehow got missed out when we created our package. So now you're watching troubleshooting when things don't go right. Here we go, and there's a problem. In our manifest.in, I copied it straight from the other page, which, of course, we've changed the name of our application. Now let's have a look at setup. Setup click on anything different. That's fine. So let's give it a new version number, 1.0.1, and we'll build this one. Okay, so we've now created a new dist. You can see here it's 1.0.1. Now we want to install that one instead. And so by installing 1.0.1, it's uninstalled 1.0.0 and installed 1.0.1. And now I should be able to initialize the database. And it didn't find data.sql. That's another thing that I did. Is I split up schema.sql into two files. Well, let's do that. We'll increment the version number again. We'll build a new version. There it is, 1.0.2. And we'll install that. And see if we can initialize the database. Initialize the database worked. So now we can just run the application. And we'll go check that it works. And there we go. We've got all our prime ministers and our initialized database. Okay, so I think that's going to be all for tonight. Any questions? No. Yeah, I'll for the people who are in person, I'll spend a bit of time with them going through it. But feel free to ask any questions on Slack even when the video is finished, and maybe someone during the week can answer it. Next week, Arun will be taking the session. He'll be doing it on a Wednesday, and he'll be doing some more machine learning stuff. See you later.